Hey, Coach. So glad you found the video. Couple things. First of all, make sure you subscribe and like. Second thing, go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. Let me show you how to put a roadmap and become a nationally ranked coach. I've done it for 30 plus years. Let me help you do that over at teachhoops.com. Let's head off to the video.
All right, welcome, Coach, to Coaching
Coach,
Youth Hoops.
coaches, welcome, welcome, all of you coaches out there.
Pretty exciting.
So
September.
September, yeah,
I know.
September.
We like September. Before
Like
we
the
get into
fall.
talking about monitoring player development, which you all know that's what you came here to listen to because you saw it in the title. Let's
That's
give a
right.
big shout out to our sponsor, Coach.
Yeah, coaches, go check out Game Changer. Go to gc.com/coaching youth hoops. They are our proud sponsor. It helps keep the lights on and the I guess the words coming out the microphone to all you guys. Again, Game Changer. It's an amazing app to track your stats, monitor progress for your players. You can see their development over a season, and you can provide that. You can provide your players feedback. Also, if a parent can't make it to a game, they can see the games live. Again, that's at gc.com/coaching youth hoops.
Boom. Mic dropped. There we go.
That's right.
I can actually drop my mic because it's been acting up. But all right. So what's today's topic, Coach?
Yeah, we're going to talk about actually monitoring player progress. So, really diving into how often do you do it? When do you do it? How do you do it? Who does it? So various what should you be looking at for players? Um, it might be different from third through eighth
Right.
grade, right? So how do you yeah. So just diving into just player development, like, and giving them feedback. Thoughts?
It's different during the heat of your season probably than in preseason or at the end of your season or in the off season. I think there's different stretches to this too. So are we really probably talking about during the season?
Yeah,
Like,
during the season. Yep,
yep,
yep, yep. Because you
because
want
it's
I mean, that's why you coach, right? You want your players to improve, are they?
right,
Right? And because players, I mean, the good players will always ask, "What can I do?" Right?
right,
Is there something I can work on? All right? Or I always tell my players, I don't determine your playing time, you do. So what, by your improvement, by your energy and effort and practice, um, by your attitude.
right.
So
And I think there's some individual there's definitely individual feedback is important. I always try to use a 3-to-1, 4-to-1 positive to negative. Um, sometimes you have to jump in on that negative, especially especially if
especially in
they're
game.
doing something that's, they're
Well,
gonna
right,
hurt
yeah.
themselves or something like that. But
Or yeah, exactly.
yeah, you're
Or
never quite
detrimental
sure.
to the team, right? The
Yeah,
team
but
culture. So yeah.
I think it's really being, when you again, and I'm a firm believer in not stopping a lot and not stopping correcting that doesn't work.
Yeah.
um but it's got to be specific. It's got to, and you have to tell them what you want them to do rather than sometimes you have to show them. And often I'll pull them out especially if I have another assistant. It's great because maybe they're doing something with their pivot foot or maybe their shot. It's like
Mm-hmm.
when I can give them individual by themselves with me, that's the best sometimes, in my opinion. You can't always do that, especially in big groups. Um,
Right.
but I think you really have to be specific on it. And even with something that's bad, I usually start with a positive. Even if it's 1-to-1, I'll do that. I usually start with a positive. Hey, I love the way that you're running on the court, but da 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 da
Mm-hmm.
da.
Sure.
To especially at the youth level, because they're really only going to hear the negative, and you got to throw some positives into that, gray matter on there a little bit.
Yeah,
To get
for
them to
sure.
come back. Uh, what's your thoughts, Coach?
Yeah, two things. So one is I try to do the sandwich technique, right, which is positive, then uh, something that can in the middle that they can improve upon, and the last thing is something positive. So it's kind of the sandwich technique of giving feedback. That seems to work, and kids want feedback. They want to improve. It's all about your delivery, just like with anybody, right? Your spouse, your best friend, your assistant coach, doesn't matter.
Right.
Um, we want to get better, and so do kids. And it's just, they're going to be more apt to accepting that feedback if you're generally positive, even if it's a negative or a negative, something that they need to do, really need to do right now, right? They're going to be definitely more open to it if they know your body of work is positive, reinforcing and encouraging. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's yeah, that's and people need to understand that facial expressions, 60% of your
Yeah,
communication is facial expression. So you'd be saying something positive, but if you look like they just ran over your dog, it's like it's not
yeah,
so
yeah,
um
yeah, yeah,
that,
yeah.
and
Exactly.
that's where
Yes.
game changer would come in. If you were taping practice, you could look at your facial expressions to see what it
Look
is.
at your
But
facial per well, and, in a previous podcast, we talked about using Game Changer and looking at your facial expressions during a game. It's just as important, right? That's all part of that communication and that feedback that you're giving
right,
kids. In this case, we were talking about during a live game situation. But I think,
yeah,
the other part is what's really important, and this is more of the communication piece of this, is what is the outcome you're expecting, and to make sure that's communicated. So when when you do give, if you didn't do that and you gave them feedback, they said, no, I did that, or well, I didn't know what you meant, right? They're going to interpret whatever you say however they want, but if it's really clear, here's the outcome I'm looking for. That could be through a demonstration before you show them how to do something. That could just really be making, here's my expectations of this X, whatever you're working on at the time. Um, also that the feedback part of this is setting those expectations up front. So when you do give them feedback, they know exactly, oh yeah, I deserve that because, the expectations were set up front. If that's through your culture, whatever you're doing, um, they violate something, right? You know that, hey, when coach is talking, we hold the balls, right? Right. No dribbling while coach is talking.
right. We're
That's my
locked
big one.
in. We're standing here. We're
Yeah.
doing this. Yes, I think some of those clear and precise expectations can encourage a lot. I think.
So
Yeah,
and really what we're talking about here is that individual quick feedback. What about,
yeah,
do you do it multiple times per year where you're just kind of where it's more planned. It's more, hey, I'm going to sit down with each kid today for 5 minutes and give them, their stats from Game Changer, right? Here's your rebounding, here's your X, here's your Y. Hey, and this is how you compare to the other team without giving out names in that comparison, but this is the percentile you're in. And again, age appropriate on all of this stuff. I just want to reiterate that, right?
right,
What you say to a third grader and maybe the info you give there is a lot different than an eighth grader, right?
right.
Or in your case, the high school kids too. So, but how often would you suggest more, I'll call it more formal, we'll call it more formal sit down sessions?
Yeah. How do I format them?
Yeah, how do you feel about it at the youth level? I mean, we doing that
I think
once a
they're
year,
good.
twice a
I
year,
would definitely
mid-year?
think more middle school than elementary school for sure.
For sure, yeah.
The
So
later
fifth
groups.
grade, yeah,
Yeah, I wouldn't know if I
sixth
would do it
grade.
before fifth, but it's definitely six
Hmm.
on. I think they can
Hmm.
have that conversation with you a little bit more, and you can, I would have a handout. I would have something concrete. So Jack or Jane or Deshaun or whatever, don't go home and say, Dad, my basketball coach says I'm horrible and I can't dribble. Well, that's not actually what I said. And then
Right.
the handout's always a good fallback on that. So I think some of those things is again, or have the parent there, especially if you're dealing with a younger. It's like sometimes you can have especially with the younger kids, you can have them there just kind of hear what you're saying. It's like, oh, you're doing so well, but here's the things, blah blah blah. And definitely, I always did those in the postseason things. It's like,
Yeah.
here's what you can work on, and here's how we can help, and how can I help you? And but this is more in season stuff. I would definitely keep it in the TikTok series, like short and sweet.
Or yeah.
Less than 30 seconds,
Yeah. And very, just don't overload them. Give them one specific thing they can work on before next practice or this month, right?
I wouldn't give them too many things to do. All right, let's give a summary and give a big shout out again to Coach.
Yeah. So again, player feedback is important. You want to see progress in your team. Use something like Game Changer to monitor their game stats. So gc.com/coaching youth hoops. You can see that and give them feedback based on watching the footage, which Game Changer will capture, and then the actual stats as well. But think of whatever technique you want. What was your rule, Coach? Your 1-3-1, was it?
It's usually three positives for one negative.
Okay, three positive, one negative. And I use the sandwich technique. You start with the positive in the middle. There's some, criticism, or criticism's not the right word, but you get some feedback, that things they need to improve
and
on.
Usually if I try to do 3-1, I'm usually 1-1 or 2-1, it's like you sometimes forget, but we're not perfect, but you just got to think of, if you're thinking about it, I think it helps a little bit. So
yeah, and your tone and your body language when you communicate those quick little things during practice is important, right? And then I guess one thing I will add, which I do all the time, is I'll pick one person to practice to after practice, as they're kind of just walking out. Hey, you got 2 seconds? I just wanted to tell you something, right? And then I'll give them a quick piece of positive feedback on something they did, or really liked what they did during practice, and just so they walk out with a big smile on their face, right? And that practice was fun, and right, everybody likes to be told that they're doing something great. So good little thing.
All right, and then give a big shout out to our sponsor, Coach.
Yep. Go to gc.com/coaching youth hoops. gc.com/coaching youth hoops.
Coach is having a little, there you go.
Yeah. I know, I'm pausing there.
Pausing.
I should know that
You should know that URL. All right. Have a great day, everybody.
Hey, Coach. So glad you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed it a lot. Actually, if you did, subscribe and like, and then go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better.